The GT 730 was a budget, low-end GPU that was released way back in 2014. But a year and a half ago, NVidia re-released this GPU. And unfortunately, if you're looking to spend the least amount of money on a new GPU, something like this is probably your only choice. So, is it worth it? Can it play modern games in any capacity? Surely it can't be that bad. Right? Right? Hello there, I'm TechDweeb, welcome, thanks for clicking on the video. So yeah, as the title of this video told you, we need to talk about the GT 730. Here's the thing, I did a video on the GT 710. I tried to show it off in the best light. It's not good for modern games, so I didn't show it on modern games. I showed old games. But I didn't give it a hard time because, hey, it's an old GPU, so obviously it's not going to do great today. But the GT 730, I'm not feeling nearly as generous with this GPU. Here's the thing, the GT 730 was released back in 2014, but you could still buy them new. Oh, but you could still buy the GT 710 new, you say. Yeah, because the GT 710 was such a piece of garbage that nobody bought them, so there's a ton of extra stock. The GT 730 is sort of in the same situation. A GPU shortage, old stock available, okay, fine. But if you go to Newegg right now, you'll find a ton of GT 730s up there, and not all of these are old unsold GT 730s. Some of them are new GT 730s. Because NVIDIA, in the heart of the GPU shortage, re-released this 9-year-old GPU. So specifically, MSI was the board partner who got to make the new version of the GT 730. And as we know from my best friend Steve from Gamers Nexus in this video,
this is such an impressive abomination that it actually warrants the word scam. I can reintroduce you to NVIDIA's Fermi series of GPUs.
Right there.
Thanks, Steve.
They got caught basically scamming people with this GPU. And yet, here we are. You can buy this one new on Newegg, the same piece of garbage that it was back in 2014. And the worst part is that if you want a super cheap GPU, if you're building a system on a tiny budget and you want to get something for around $100 to use to game on, and maybe until you can afford an upgrade, you go to Newegg and you search for GPUs and you organize them by price. The GT 730 is probably what you choose if you didn't know any better. So that's what I'm here to do today. Is the GT 730 actually an okay choice to play modern games? I mean, maybe you're willing to make some sacrifices. Maybe you want to play a few games that came out in the last few years, but you don't have money for a fancy GPU and you're wondering, what if? What if I turn the settings all the way down and play at 720p? Can I actually game on a GT 730? Well, let's find out, shall we? This GT 730 was given to me by a subscriber, my good buddy Digmat. Thanks buddy, I hope you enjoy the video. This is the DDD-DR3 version of the card. There is a GDD-DR5 version of the card, but that's not the version that was re-released. So these new GT 730s, they're DDD-DR3, just like this one. I'm running this GPU in my testing rig with an i5-10400, 16 gigabytes of 3200 megaflops RAM, and the GPU is this GT 730. Obviously. Starting off, as always, with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And also starting off, not as always, but we should, and you should if you have a GT 730, with a little bit of overclocking. I was able to get a stable overclock of 200 MHz on the core clock and 300 MHz on the memory clock. We went from 19 FPS in Shadow of the Tomb Raider before the overclock to 22 FPS after. Not a huge boost, but we'll take every little bit of performance we can get. So, as you probably noticed, this is not a good start. We're running at 50% of 1080p, which is 720p essentially, at the lowest settings. Not the lowest preset. The actual settings go lower than that. And even still, we only managed 22 FPS on average. I mean, at least the 1% lows weren't much lower than that, so that's a plus. This game doesn't really look like much with the shadows turned off. It's pretty gross looking. I kinda hate it. And is it playable? Meh, not really. 22 FPS? That's not good enough for me to enjoy it. I wouldn't bother trying to play this on a GT 730 to be honest. Alright, and Elden Ring wouldn't launch for me. It was crashing, or it's just not compatible with this GPU. Because the GT730, in addition to being so old that it's not receiving driver updates, it also doesn't support DirectX 12 beyond feature set 11.0. So there will be lots of games that you straight up can't even start. Same thing with God of War, that's not going to work. You need feature set 11.1, I think, and you can't do that here. Same thing with Resident Evil Village, that's not going to work either. Here's a game that did start, The Witcher 3, but I was really hoping for better here in The Witcher 3. This is an old game, but here it's the new next-gen update. But I'm running in DirectX 12 mode at the very lowest settings, 720p, and we got 12 FPS on average. Now, when it comes to The Witcher 3, I can play this game on some pretty low-end hardware. I love the game, and I think it looks great even on the lowest settings. I can enjoy it at 720p, no problem, but this isn't even close to playable. Not even close. And more bad news. I have some good news coming up, I promise. I did find some modern games that were enjoyable. But let's get Cyberpunk 2077 out of the way. Yeah, this is 720p with the lowest settings, lowest crowd density, everything I could find set to lowest, and I got 8 FPS on average. This game does have FSR built in, but this GPU doesn't like FSR. Not even a little bit. So we gotta run at native 720p. I say run, and I guess you could technically call this running, but is it playable? Not even close. Okay, here's my first bit of good news. Red Dead Redemption 2 at 720p in the lowest settings was giving us around 13 FPS. Not playable, obviously, but this game has resolution scale options. So I disabled the anti-aliasing entirely and set it to 50% resolution scale, and we actually got a playable FPS. It was only 30 FPS, but it actually felt buttery smooth compared to the slideshow that we had before. And again, the 1% lows are good with respect to the average FPS. Now, there's a sacrifice, obviously. 50% of 720p is 500p, essentially. It basically feels like you're playing a PS1 game or something at this resolution. But, contrary to popular opinion, you can play games at low resolutions and enjoy them if they're good games and don't rely too heavily on like precise distance shooting or really accurate 3D clicking or something. I think if you really wanted to play this game and you had a GT730 and you look at this footage that you see on the screen and you think, yeah, I could deal with that, then I have good news for you. This is one game, a great looking game, an amazing game in general that you can play on a GT730. Would I play like this? No freaking way, but if you would, then I salute you. Horizon Zero Dawn didn't fare so well. This is 1080p but with ultra performance resolution scaling, which isn't FSR. This is separate from FSR. This game just uses this verbal scale for resolution scaling since the recent update for some reason. So I don't know what the resolution actually is here. I feel like it's 720p at the lowest settings, and we only got 13 FPS on average. So no, it's not playable. Maybe it would have been okay if I ran at 720p native with the ultra performance scale, but I didn't try that. And I definitely wouldn't recommend that. Considering how much of this game is sniping very small parts of these robot dinosaurs with your bow, you won't be able to even see what you're doing at less than 720p. Trust me. No Man's Sky actually started out not too bad. After the stupid loading screen that this game uses that takes freaking forever, eventually the game got going, and I was kind of impressed. Lowest settings, 1080p with 50% resolution scale. I was getting like 24 FPS, but this game has resolution scale options that most games don't. You could go right down to 10% resolution scale. 10% of 1080p is 220p. That's, well, it's running. It's running good. It feels smooth, getting like 40 FPS, but do I really need to comment on this? Just look at it. That's got to be a no. But what about this? 35% of 1080p. That's 420p. This is actually kind of playable. I got 31 FPS on average like this. And you know what? I didn't hate it. I've said before that the real test for me is when I'm doing a benchmark test and I forget that I'm doing the test and just play the game and enjoy it. That's what happened here. I played for like 10 minutes and I didn't want to stop. The fact that it has a 1080p interface is a big help because lots of the gameplay for this game happens in like the crafting menus, but I really didn't hate the experience, even at 420p. So I'm actually going to give this a thumbs up. If you have a GT 730, play some No Man's Sky. It's a great game and you can play it. Here's GTA 5, and I kind of expected more here. I think because GTA 5 runs so well on so many weak hardware setups that I was unreasonably expecting it to magically play great on the GT 730. And I think the performance here is a testament to how bad this GPU really is. Don't get me wrong, you can play the game and have fun. But you can also play the game and have fun on a freaking toaster. Seriously, this game runs on anything. My Athlon 3000G APU gets like twice the FPS at higher settings. But that's not the point. You can play GTA 5 on the GT 730, and that's all that matters today. So I got an average of 43 FPS. I'm running at the lowest settings, 1080p with 50% resolution scale, which is about 720p. Oh, by the way, I better not hear anyone try to correct me about my resolution scale figures. I made a video about this. If you think 50% of 1080p is 540p, you're wrong. Go watch my resolution scale video. Actually, go watch it after this video anyways, because it's a good video. I'm proud of that one. Come on! And of course, we gotta do Fortnite. Lowest settings, no shadows, epic view distance. This is 1080p, actually. One of the few games that you can actually run at 1080p. If you're okay with 30 FPS, that is. That's what we got. Now, I'm no Fortnite pro. I can hold my own. Occasionally I win a match of zero build solo, but I'm not sweaty with this game by any means. But even I could tell that my skills were greatly diminished by playing on a GT 730 here. The controls did not feel responsive at all. And it's more than just the low FPS. Now, if you lowered the resolution scale down to 720p and got around 50 or 60 FPS, that might help. Go ahead and try that if you want to. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not playing any more Fortnite on the GT 730. Not even for you.
Scientist reality augmentation system.
Need for Speed Heat did not like our GT 730. As you can see, the game just imploded. It gave me a bunch of garbage graphics. Like I said, this GPU is not receiving driver updates. I'm running on the latest driver, which is from December 2022, but that was just a security update. I'm pretty sure the actual game-ready driver is much older than that. So maybe that's why the game got borked. Or maybe it's just that the GT 730 is too weak. Or maybe it's a DirectX 12 thing. I don't know. I don't care. You can't play Need for Speed Heat on a GT 730, so don't even try. DOTA 2 is a game that people play. Not me. This game gives me nightmares, but some people play it. And some people want to know how it plays on various GPUs. So I hear. Well, here you go. This is 1080p, lowest settings, obviously, and I think I'm running at 50% resolution scale. I can't remember, but I think that's right. And it's actually not doing too bad. 102 FPS on average by the end of this match. That's pretty good, right? You can play Dota with those FPS, can't you? I'm actually surprised at how good the game looks. They did a great job with the art style in this game. You know, the map and the characters and the effects. There's a lot of charm to it. I love the look of it. I wish I could play it, but I can't. I get yelled at by teenagers, and they hurt my feelings, so I don't even bother. I'm just spectating here, if you didn't notice. And last but not least, Valorant. Definitely not least, actually. This was really totally playable. Which isn't surprising. This game runs on less than a toaster. It runs on like an old janky toaster, where the toaster arm doesn't stay pressed down and you have to hold it with your finger, and only one bread slot works, and it only toasts one side of the bread, and it burns it every time. This game runs on that toaster. And that's my toaster analogy. What do you think? This is actually super playable here. 1080p, lowest settings, and I don't have my MSI Afterburner stats because this game doesn't want you to use that for cheating reasons or something, but I have the FPS counter at the top of the screen, and looking back at the footage, I'm gonna guesstimate that this was running at 135 FPS on average, and I actually got a few kills. If a terrible Valorant player like me could get kills in this game on a GT 730, that's proof enough that you could play it on this GPU and do just fine. So, while there were a few games that ran sort of okay, some very low spec games, overall this was a terrible experience, actually. Modern gaming on a GT 730 is an exercise in frustration, and low frame rates, and blurry pixels. Maybe this GPU has some redeeming qualities. Maybe it can do better than the GT 710 and some older games from like the Xbox 360 era. There's probably a ton of great games that you can play on this GPU. Or emulation, maybe that's a thing. I bet this GPU would make a great addition to a PC for some mid-range emulation. But like I said at the start, the crime that the GT 730 committed wasn't just existing. That's forgivable. It's the fact that this GPU got a refresh and was still being made. It's still being made now as far as I know. It's still being sold at basically the same price that it came out 9 freaking years ago. It's one of the only low-end options, and that's the problem here. It's not the GPU's fault or the retailer. It's NVIDIA's fault and AMD. Why is the low end being ignored by GPU makers? Where's our GT 3030 or our RX 6100 XT? I mean, I know why. Because money, that's why. Because they could squeeze more dollars out of us if they make the low-end offerings such a terrible value that we have to spend the big bucks on something at least $200 or more to get an even remotely good value for our money. The GT 730 represents something that's wrong with PC gaming right now. Something that needs to be addressed. And that's why I titled the video like this. There needs to be more talk about why there are no low-end modern GPUs that are a viable choice. It's a symptom of a much larger problem of the PC parts industry right now. These huge companies just leaning on the high end and either ignoring the low end or purposefully sabotaging it with crap like this. Low end, budget PC gaming deserves better than this, and we shouldn't stand for it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, that's it. I'm done with being negative. If I look at this GPU again, it'll be in an attempt to show it off in a good light, to show you what it can do rather than what it can't. Or emulation. I think that would make a fun video. Would you want to see that? Or anything else running on this GT 730? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you down there. And while you're down there, click the thumbs up button if you like the video. Or don't if you didn't. Check out my Discord server, linked below. If you do that sort of thing, there's a good bunch of smart, cool, funny, sophisticated TechDweebs over there. You wouldn't want to miss out on the fun, would you? That's it from me. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.